people have mysteriously vanished in America's wilderness. Join us as we dive into the deep end of the unexplainable and try to piece together what happened. You are listening to Locations Unknown.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to a special episode of Locations Unknown. I'm your co-host, Joe Irado, and with us, not as always, is Mike and Michelle for this very special Alaska episode. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Pretty good?
Yeah.
How you doing, Michelle?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So I wasn't supposed to be here at all, so I'm just going to be introducing you guys, and then I'm becoming the producer. I'm the Jamie of this episode. So
so hanging back.
Yep.
Well, thank you to all of our amazing listeners for tuning in. Just a couple of announcements here. So I'd like to give a shout out to new Patreon follower, Elise Hawkins. Thank you for supporting the show. If you want to call the show, leave a voicemail, yell at us about what we're doing wrong. Call 208-391-6913. Just remember, we always say, whatever you say, the crazier, the more likely we'll put it on. So make sure to call and
yes, definitely
go all crazy. Probably try and do it if you've been drinking.
Call and try and do try and do an intro of your own. I always like that when people try, but do it from memory.
Yes. Yeah, do it from memory.
Ever since Albert Stoner did that, I always laugh. So try and remember the intro, call, and just say it on the phone.
We haven't had Montana Mike call in a while. This is a call out. Make sure you're doing okay.
Yeah. So this is a wellness check. To Montana
wellness
Mike.
Check on Montana Mike. If you want to support the show, we have many ways you can do it. You can support us through Patreon, YouTube memberships, Apple subscriptions, someday on X. We have a shop.
He's going to get to Mars before he approves our thing.
You can buy stuff off of our shop, though it's pretty depleted. We need to restock on hats and all that fun stuff. Other than that, Joe, any updates before we get going here?
Nope. All right, everybody, let's gear up and get out to explore Locations Unknown.
September 2006. A year after Richard Lyman Griffis stepped off a bus in the Yukon and vanished into the vast Alaskan wilderness, into Wrangell St. Elias National Park, the search for answers begins. But Griffis isn't the only Richard lost in Alaska's unforgiving terrain around this time. Two others, Richard Hills and Richard Bennett, also disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Join us for episode 2 of Locations Unknown, special edition, Gone in Alaska, as we explore what these cases tell about the dangers lurking in America's last frontier.
So we are going north of the border today to Canada. Michelle had warned me ahead of time of some of the pronunciations, so I'll give it the college try. So
good luck.
We are the location of this case is in Beaver Creek, which is in the Yukon Territory. It's a small town of not only 97 people. It's located on Canada's White River. So it's extremely popular for river rafting, canoeing, kayaking. It's only a few miles from the Alaska-Canada border, which is one of the longest undefended borders in the world at 5,500 miles. So this lies along the Alaskan or Alaska-Canada Highway. It stretches for 1,387 miles from Dawson Creek, British Columbia to Delta Junction, Alaska. It was built in 1942 to connect Alaska to the rest of the U.S. for military purposes during World War II. Unlike when they need to fix a pothole today, this only took them 8 months to build, which is pretty amazing. Strategic reasoning was to defend against possible invasion by the Japanese. So, very interesting, Joe and Michelle, that they could build a 1,300-mile highway in eight months.
You're not even supposed to talk to me.
I know. Sorry, I'm so used to. Oh, we got window lookers.
We got window visitors, but I'm not here. I'll chime in every now and then, but I'm
sorry.
like not even paying attention. I'm just watching the volume.
So most of this case is going to focus on the Wrangell St. Elias National Park and Preserve in south central Alaska and on the border with Canada. So this is the biggest national park in the U.S., 13 million acres. It's the size of 2 Marylands, divided into 2 districts. So we've got the Nebshina Ranger District, where Griffiths went missing, 5 million acres, 4 times the size of Grand Canyon. So it's pretty darn big. Some of the towns in the park, so outpost tourist town of McCarthy, Alaska, population 107. 5 miles away is Kennecott, Alaska, which is Alaska's most famous ghost town and abandoned copper mine. They had a mining operation from 1911 to 1938. Northern Athabascan natives had been collecting copper from this area for thousands of years. They used it to make daggers and spears for bear and moose hunting. Considered treasured good, used in trading and practical applications. The mining camp remains are now Kennecott Mine's National Historic Landmark, which you can visit, which is kind of cool. So the park is part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site shared with Glacier Bay National Park and Canada's Kluane and Tatashini Alsek parks, forming the largest international protected area in the world. So a couple interesting facts about this park. It's home to 9 of the 16 highest mountains in the U.S., with 3 mountain ranges, the Wrangells, the Chugach, and Mount St. Elias, which is the highest coastal mountain range in the world. The second highest peak in the U.S. at over 18,000 feet. A lot of glaciers in this area, too. So we've got Malaspina Glacier alone covers about 1,500 square miles. Nabashina Glacier is the longest interior valley glacier in North America at 75 miles. And it contains 1/4 of all glaciers in North America. Because of that, many hikes involve crossing glaciers. Out of all of that, there are about 100 miles of road. You can drive there from Fairbanks or Anchorage to start your trek. But many of the best hikes will require drop-in or pickup by air charter for access. So a little bit in-depth description of some of the features. You got valleys, hillsides, glaciers, mountains, forests, rivers, and oceans. A beachfront with black sand beaches along the Gulf of Alaska is formed by volcanic rocks. Our friends at the Köppen climate classification. So this park is so big it has 3: continental, subarctic with cold and dry summers, subarctic with cool summers and dry winters, and subarctic with cool summers and year-round rainfall. So, just quickly here, get into some of the dangers a little bit. So animals, grizzly bears, black bears, moose, wolves, lynxes, wolverines, coyotes. As Joe and I have always said, out of that list, I probably in Alaska fear moose the most, and then grizzlies by a short margin. So weather, winter temps can dip to a balmy minus 50 degrees, pretty cold. There's often sudden heavy rainfall, which can make river crossings especially dangerous. The many glaciers have crevasses. Avalanches are another thing you got to worry about. And the weather obviously is hugely variable. You should be prepared for all kinds of conditions, especially in September, the time of year this case takes place. With that out of the way, Michelle, why don't you give us a profile of the character of this case?
Okay. We are talking about Richard Lyman Griffis. He was most recently living in Spokane, Washington. He was male. At the time of his disappearance in 2006, he was 47 years old. He was 6 foot, 220 pounds, heavy build, brown hair, blue eyes, eyeglasses, he had no known medical issues. Griffis was a bit of an itinerant inventor. He moved around a lot. He was always coming up with new ideas. He'd been a resident of Oregon, New York, California, Florida before he moved to Washington. His experience in the wilderness remains somewhat of a question mark. We don't know much about whether or not he had experience in the wilderness or in this location in the wilderness. But I think it's fair to say that he probably had some, because the whole reason he was traveling to Alaska was because he designed a wilderness survival cocoon and he wanted to test it out.
Bear burrito. That's what I call those.
People that we're going to hear from in this case are park rangers who were involved in the search for Griffis. And the only confirmed item among his gear was the orange survival cocoon. Park rangers described it as a part survival pod, part tent, and part flotation device. But presumably, Griffis also had some other gear because he was preparing to spend a winter in this thing in Alaska. So I'm thinking maps, camping gear, food, hunting gear, everything you would expect your friendly neighborhood prepared survivalist to be carrying.
Yeah, without that stuff.
Mike, what would you bring if you were going to overwinter in a pod in Alaska?
Yeah, first, I don't know that I would spend my winter in a bear burrito, but sorry, his cocoon. But yeah, no, I mean, for my limited hiking in Canada, in Alaska, you need to prepare and then over prepare because minus 50 sounds brutal. You've got grizzlies to contend with. Hopefully he was prepared. It sounds like we don't really know the total list of gear he might have had, but yeah, I mean, that's a tough environment to winter in. So I don't know.
Yeah, when I drove to Alaska in September, I had so much gear in my car that the Border Patrol thought I was moving there.
Yeah.
So that's how prepared I was. So I can't imagine whittling it down to things I could carry along with my survival pod.
Yeah, I mean, that's I've never done like true winter backcountry hiking, but I've hiked in areas where we've been expecting rain and high winds, and my pack was 50 or 60 pounds. I can't imagine packing enough gear to survive a winter in Alaska. So crazy. I don't know that I would do that.
Me neither.
Yeah. So, why don't you tell us about the timeline of his disappearance now?
Yeah. So our timeline starts on the last day that Richard Lyman Griffis was confirmed to have been seen alive, September 20th of 2006. Griffis got off a bus on the Alaska Highway at a lodge along the White River in Beaver Creek, Yukon Territory, Canada. So Griffis dropped off some of his gear at the lodge. And while he was there, he told people he planned to hike and make his way to McCarthy, Alaska, in Wrangell, St. Elias National Park. So there is a road that goes from Beaver Creek through Wrangell to McCarthy, but it's a little bit roundabout, making it a journey of about 400 miles if you go by road. Google helpfully told me it would take me 133 hours to walk the road. Sure. So hiking there cuts the distance to fewer than 100 miles, probably like 40 to 60 miles. But since we don't actually know what route Griffis planned to take, we don't know which sections he'd picked. It's a dangerous trek, but it's kind of hard to say which dangerous trek he took. Mm-hmm. Griffis had told his friends he was going to overwinter in Alaska and test out his cocoon. So nobody was alarmed when they did not hear from him. And September is the time of year when Alaska weather really starts to turn. In this area, it's the rainy season, so it's really recommended that you stay at lower elevations unless you have good rain gear. That's the time of year I was in Alaska, and it was already snowing, and towns were closing down for the winter. So you better be prepared at that time of year.
Yeah.
So now our timeline moves forward almost a year. It's August of 2007, and Griffis's friends are concerned. Nobody has heard from him. So a friend of his, a woman in Florida, calls the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in Beaver Creek, and she reports Griffis missing. She didn't even know where Beaver Creek and the Yukon Territory was. I mean, I don't blame her, like living in Florida especially.
Yeah.
But that is like how remote this is, how removed from Griffis's friends' lives.
Yeah.
So that's when people started to do the math, and they realized that Griffis had not been seen since that day he got off that bus. So Sergeant Ben Sewell of the Canadian Mounties ended up being the ranger who led the hunt for Griffis. So he said the search was hard from the start because nobody knew what direction Griffis had hiked in. Mm-hmm. Search and rescue resources are also, as you may imagine, kind of limited in the area. At that time, Sergeant Sewell represented the entirety of the police force of Beaver Creek. There aren't many roads to follow. There aren't really defined trails. The search operators were only guessing as to what route he would have attempted, especially after so much time. It's not like you could say, oh, last Thursday the weather was great.
Yeah.
He would have picked this pass. So that really hampered them right from the beginning. They were able to track down the bus ticket. They were able to track down the person he talked to at the lodge. So that was at least confirmed, but then he just vanishes.
I mean, this sounds like the impossible search to be assigned to. So we always say in cases we've covered that like the first day or two are like the most important in a search and rescue. And usually they know kind of a general area of where the person was. In this case, you've got a guy who's been missing for a year. No one really knows where he went. And it's Alaska, which is massive and hard to get to. And,
Yes.
I mean, it's like, as Joe always says, searching for a needle in a stack of needles. So, I mean, this is like an impossible search. I feel bad almost for the searchers because, like, where do you start? Like, I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you are in a town where you are the entirety of the police force as a bonus.
It's not like you can like summon up a couple hundred searchers. You like a lot of our cases,
Right.
Sometimes there's 100, 200 people out there searching within a day of them going missing. I'm assuming that's not the case with this disappearance.
That is not the case with this disappearance. Yeah, it's extra hard when the year has passed, right? Everything you think of that people are looking for in the usual cases, footsteps, gear, clothing, equipment, everything is gone. Even evidence of like an accident or an avalanche or an animal attack. It's been a year. Like that could just be completely covered up or washed away by nature. Mm-hmm. Blood, drag marks, bones, like rock slides. Where do you even start?
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, because we've heard about, you know, even if someone falls and sadly dies, like, you know, if the searchers get out there quick enough, they might find remains. But after a year with the amount of snow and rainfall they get and, you know, there's animals like scavenging, the chances of finding anything are probably slim to none.
Exactly. Okay, so now we're going to jump around a bit. A tale of two more Richards. So I want to mention two separate cases to really reinforce just how vast the area we're talking about is and how difficult it is to find people when they go missing there, and how difficult it is to identify remains when they're even found, which is the best case scenario. Mm-hmm. So now it is 2014, and a wildfire called the Funny River Fire has broken out in Alaska's Kenai Peninsula. That's about 400 miles to the west of McCarthy. It's on the other side of the Chugach Mountains. But by Alaska standards, that's pretty close. So the fire will go on to burn nearly 200,000 acres. Firefighters battling the blaze find some bones, a boot, most of a human skull. There was a quote in the Atlantic article that I liked about this discovery. The spot the bones were found in was described by locals as the middle of nowhere. Which reminds me of your needle and needles.
Yeah, needle in a stack of needles. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But when this discovery was made in 2014 by the firefighters, the discovery was really nerve-wracking for one family in the nearby town of Soldotna, which was about 20 miles away from where the bones were found, because their loved one, Richard Thomas Hills, age 35, had gone missing less than 3 miles from there in 2004. So just 2 years before Richard Lyman Griffis would go missing. Richard Hills went by Rick. Rick's mother and girlfriend wondered if the bones belonged to him. Rick had last been seen collecting his paycheck from his job on an oil rig, and his truck was found crashed in a snowbank. His tracks in the snow seemed to indicate that he might have injured his leg in the crash based on the way he was limping, but then the tracks just disappeared. A search was conducted, but dogs lost the scent, and it was February, so it was snowing. The nearby Kenai River was dragged, but nothing turned up. So now it is 10 years later. So in 2014, Rick Hills has been missing for 10 years too. So the Alaska State Troopers, they carefully collect these charred remains. And 3 months later, the medical examiner sends the answer. The bones do not belong to Rick Hills. So now Alaska State Troopers are trying to uncover the identity of these bones. They belong to a man, probably in his late 30s. Lieutenant Cat Shuey was surprised to see another Richard, a man named Richard Bennett, on the list of open missing persons cases, because Richard Bennett had been found, hadn't he? Richard Bennett was a 39-year-old man who had gone missing in the same area as Rick Hills in 2005, just a few months later. Bennett had lived a half a mile from where Rick's truck had been found crashed in the snow, all still within 3 miles of the spot where the Funny River Fire bones were found. But Bennett's family had been given his remains years ago, so why was he still on this list of active missing persons? This is how the Bennett family learned they had buried the wrong man. In April of 2005, Richard Bennett's parents realized no one had seen or heard from their auto mechanic son in months. They talked to his closest neighbors, who reported some concerning things. He'd used their fax machine to send some job applications, and he'd been depressed about his job prospects and his financial situation. An ATM camera showed him withdrawing what turned out to be his last $10. The neighbors reported he was also burning a huge amount of garbage, which in Alaska is not completely uncommon. Like, this is a very usual way of disposing of your spare refuse, but the amount was so much that, like, the neighbors noted it. So when his parents went to his trailer to check on him, they found Richard Bennett's belongings sorted and labeled, and he'd signed the title of his truck over to his parents. So now they're really worried. So they immediately report him missing, and they start talking to other neighbors. And these other neighbors report that they've noticed some increased animal activity in the woods nearby. So Bennett's parents decide they're going to conduct their own ground search of the forest near his home. So they do a 4-hour rudimentary grid search, and they find something. A skeleton next to a log just 300 yards into the woods. The remains were still dressed in men's Levi's and blue sweatpants, which was typical clothing for Richard Bennett. The height and size of the body matched Richard Bennett too. Richard Bennett's mother provided a DNA sample to have the body tested against. But the Alaska State Troopers warned that with the backlog, it could be nearly 2 years before the results would be back. And the Bennett family did not want to wait that long for closure. They wanted to bury their son and end this sad chapter of their lives. So investigators and the medical examiner tracked down x-rays taken of Bennett years ago when Richard broke his right leg in a motorcycle accident. They matched these to the body, and the injuries looked consistent. So in 2006, Richard Bennett's family received the remains, and they had them cremated. They decided to bury his ashes near a lake in Alaska that Bennett had loved to go to hunt and fish. So in 2014, when Lieutenant Kat Shuey dug into the files in this case, she found those official DNA results that the family understandably hadn't wanted to wait for.
Yeah.
They had not come in until November of 2007, in fact, more than a year after the Bennetts had buried the remains. The DNA results confirmed that the skeleton found in the woods by Richard Bennett's trailer was not Richard Bennett.
That's wild.
They were, in fact, the remains of Rick Hills. And the injury to his right leg was probably an old hockey accident that he'd newly re-injured when his truck crashed into the snow. So law enforcement officials now had to track down the two families and deliver the news of the horrible mistakes that had been made. The families of the two Richards met, and Rick's family retrieved his ashes. The bones from the fire were later identified as belonging to somebody else entirely, which may or may not be a future case. We'll see. But Richard Bennett still remains missing 2 decades later, just like Richard Lyman Griffis. No trace of Griffis or his survival cocoon has ever been found, leaving so many questions. Where is Griffis? Where is his gear? How has nothing been found? Is he dead?
I would say probably. Not to laugh
seems like
at
a
it.
good segue into the next section.
Yeah. So yeah, what are the official theories? I have a guess of what law enforcement probably thought. At least for
Sergeant
Griffiths.
Sewell was re-interviewed. Sorry?
Oh no, sorry. I said at least with Griffiths, I think it's probably pretty clear cut what happened.
Yeah. Sergeant Sewell was re-interviewed about the Griffis case in 2014. He said he figures that Griffis is dead and lost to the wilderness, but he's hopeful that someday someone will find a piece of the survival cocoon. This thing is big and orange, and that will help narrow down the search area for Griffis's remains, which it makes sense. Like, it's a bright color, it's large. I don't know what it's made out of, but it's probably not completely biodegradable. So hopefully part of it will survive.
Yeah.
And so sometimes bodies turn up in Alaska a season later, like in the spring. In the cases of the other two Richards, they had to wait for the river to thaw in order to search it. And then there's increased animal activity with the birds of prey. So hopefully someday there will be signs like that.
Yeah. So just to recap here, because there's a lot of Richards. So
Yes.
Rick Hill was the gentleman who crashed his pickup truck, and
Yes.
they found his skeleton
Yes.
on a log, basically.
Yep.
So we're
300
assuming
yards into the forest.
Yeah, so we're assuming he wandered into the forest, kind of probably injured from his car crash.
Injured,
and
yeah.
succumbed to his injuries. And
Correct.
the Richard Bennett, still at large, missing, haven't found a clue of him. And then
Correct.
Griffiths, obviously the first case you talked about is probably the most clear-cut in anyone listening. I mean, he went out, he was planning to overwinter with, questionable gear, this thing he invented. Didn't really tell anyone where he was going, what path, what route he was going to take. And searchers had no place to start their search, really, other than this massive national park with limited resources to search. Yeah.
And a year later.
And a year later, yeah. So a year of Alaska weather and animals.
Yes.
Yeah. You would say if this was like Yellowstone or Yosemite or Glacier that maybe someday a hiker or a hunter, just wandering through somewhere will stumble across them. But in Alaska, I'm not sure like Griffiths will ever be found. Because, how many, deep backcountry hikers are out there stomping around every year? Probably next to none.
Yeah.
And then the Bennett one, who knows? We don't we have no clue what happened to him. Did they?
Yeah, there were some concerning signs with that one, since he'd labeled all of his belongings for his parents and signed his vehicle over, and
That one,
so,
that one sounds sadly like maybe suicide potentially.
Yeah.
And we just don't know, where he went. But all the signs are there for that one. He kind of had some trouble in his life. He kind of was like preparing. But that is wild that his family buried the wrong person.
Yes.
That's crazy. Can you imagine when they found that out, what was going through their, like the emotions they were going through? Like it all comes back again. I mean, that's the craziest part.
And it turned out that the burial spot was a place that the other Richards family, had been driving by for 10 years. And,
oh my gosh.
it turns out, your loved one was actually buried there. Which, in the interview I read, actually, brought them some comfort. So, at least,
one family got comfort out of it, and another family, an old wound got scratched open.
Exactly.
Yeah. And now
exactly.
they're back to ground zero with their loved one.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I mean, that's Alaska. There's so many cases from Alaska where people have just vanished. Joe and I covered a case on the Alaska Triangle, which has Alaska has a lot of disappearances, but this triangle has way more than the average in Alaska in this specific area. And I think a lot of it has to do with the remoteness, obviously. It's just so much, you've been to Alaska. I've been to Alaska. I did some hiking in Denali, and you can't understate how large Alaska is. I mean, and how hard it is to get to places.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know this from your travels there. Our producer is showing the Alaska Triangle on the screen right now.
If you can see, this is where all the Bigfoot and UFO activity occurs, so it explains why a lot of people have gone missing in this significant. It's a large portion of the state. There seems to be at least 3 UFOs and at least 3 Bigfoots and or Sasquatches.
Hey, spoiler alert for the theories off the deep end.
Oh, there you go. Well, Griffiths was in the Alaska Triangle, right? I think that park is in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably right underneath where that UFO is. I wonder if that's related.
Yeah, right?
All right, I'm going to be going back into my corner now.
Okay. Yeah, so, off the deep end, I mean, usually I have a good off the deep end, but I just think he probably just, I mean, it's boring for me to say this, but he probably just wasn't prepared for Alaska winters, and I don't know. Man, you'd think if you were going to winter over in Alaska, you'd bring a satellite phone or something with you. I mean, it was 2006, so they had those back then. They were expensive.
Yeah.
But or I don't know if you can buy beacons now to alert search and rescue when you go missing, but I don't know. These are fascinating cases, and the Griffiths one, I don't think will ever be solved. If I had to put money down on it, just because of the vastness of where he went missing. The Bennett one, that one might be one of those where it's accidentally discovered, because you got to think, I don't think he would have gone 10 days out into the wilderness to do this. It's probably somewhere closer to home, and somebody someday might find some remains, which would maybe give the family some closure at that time. I don't know. What do you think, Michelle? What's your theories, and what do you think's going to happen?
So I want to know more about the survival cocoon.
Yeah.
If it was part flotation device, then maybe he was by one of the rivers or bodies of water trying to test that part.
Yeah.
So I think that might be a good place to center searches someday. But also, how did it function in the snow? Could it withstand being buried by snow in an avalanche? I think that if Griffis is ever found, that the pod is going to be the thing that makes the difference.
Was it like, so was the pod supposed to, and I don't know how much you know about this cocoon thing, was it supposed to be able to be used as like a temporary canoe or something, even if he had to cross a body of water?
Yeah, it was like flotation device.
Oh, and
so
it
I
completely
don't know
enclosed.
If, like, paddles. Yes.
I almost wonder if like he tried to cross a, so yeah, there's a picture that our producer's showing on the screen.
I've been trying to search for individual images of it, and I couldn't find anything.
I mean,
There are none. No.
Yeah, other than on this like missing
Yeah.
thing, they have his bag. And
yeah, it looks like an inflatable almost.
yeah, it's inflatable and floating
Yeah.
on water. It looks like.
I
And
almost
there's, like,
wonder
a tent
if
in it too.
He like tried to cross a body of water like inside of it, and it took on water, and he like went down with it almost like with that picture because it's floating. But in that picture, it looks like it's inflatable almost.
It is.
Yeah, but you're right. That material wouldn't just biodegrade over a year.
Right.
Yeah, for those listening at home, it's like it looks like it's made of the material that like an inflatable kayak would be made of.
Yeah.
Like a little bit thicker than just like a pool floaty, but like a giant cylinder coffin. I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
It's like if a coffin was more cylindrical but still had kind of like a bigger front end and then a more narrow bottom where your legs would go.
It looks like in a sci-fi movie, like the sleep pods they put you in.
Yeah, that's
like,
an even better one.
Travel like in space. But
Yeah.
But it's like blaze orange. Like if you were in a helicopter and this thing was on snow, it would stand out for miles. I mean, you couldn't miss this thing.
Honestly, the material looks thicker than like a
Looks
four-season
like
tent.
canvas.
But I'm saying it looks thicker than like a 4-season tent. So if you have the right gear, that could work, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows? I mean, depending on where he went, which we don't really know, it could be covered under snow. I mean, an avalanche could have happened and covered it under debris. Could have fallen in a crevasse. He could have tried to, go across water inside of it, and it sprung a leak, and then the water there is frigid, so you're not going to last long in a cold body of water in Alaska. I don't know. I really do want to know more about this cocoon. Like you said, Michelle, I think this is the key to ever finding him.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not a lot about the cocoon because this case got exactly zero attention in the media because Griffis didn't really have a family to put pressure on the media or the police to continue the search.
There wasn't really social media then.
At the forefront.
So like you wouldn't have posted stuff about it. Yeah, I mean, you got to assume though you're gonna if you find the cocoon, his remains are probably near it. He wouldn't separate himself from that.
Unless it floated away from him.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Completely.
Maybe he was trying to cross a body of water. It floated away.
Yeah.
And now he has no shelter.
Yeah.
Maybe all his gear was in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or, I mean,
yeah.
He could have been sleeping one night and attacked by a grizzly in it. I mean, it didn't, a grizzly could probably chew through that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This one's puzzling.
Off the deep end. It worked.
Yeah.
And he's still alive in it somewhere.
Yeah, he's still kicking in Alaska somewhere, just off the grid. Yeah, I don't know. This is the first time we've covered a case where a guy built his own strange sheltered device. Yeah, and I mean, we don't even know how experienced he was in the wilderness either. That usually is a big tell when we're doing cases, a lot of the people we cover in these cases, are not very experienced, at least in the area they're going hiking in, which a lot of times contributes to their disappearance. They don't have the right gear. They're not physically prepared for the hike. So that isn't, we don't know how experienced he was. He made this device, but he might have been an inventor and not really a hiker. I don't know. This one's puzzling.
Yeah, that's completely true.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's possible he's just living happily with a family of Sasquatches.
Yeah.
That part of Wrangell is known for all of the Bigfoot sightings. The Nebezna Ranger District, the district he disappeared in, is the hotbed of Sasquatch sightings.
And who keeps leaving us messages?
Who?
the guy who's married to a Sasquatch.
Well, maybe he's got a cousin like Alaska Al or something that lives up in Alaska that can call us and clue us in on the Sasquatch activity in Alaska.
Yes.
So Montana Mike, North Dakota Ned, if you've got a cousin named Alaska Al, let us know. Have him call the show.
Now you're just creating characters.
I know. Let's see if anyone calls in. I don't know.
You're going to need a volunteer from every state soon.
Yeah, we will. I think, there's Bigfoot sightings in most states.
Wisconsin Willie.
Wisconsin Willie.
Illinois Ike.
Illinois Ike. Any closing thoughts from you, Michelle, on these cases?
There's one more off the deep end.
Ooh, all right.
Could be a serial killer targeting men named Richard.
Yeah, I didn't even bring that up. That the coincidence of all these guys having the same first name, that's probably means nothing, but it could mean everything in this case. Could be a serial killer targeting Richards.
I have off the deep end I just thought of right now.
Okay, let's hear it.
For whatever reason, the U.S. government has built a weapon to attract all the Richards to Alaska.
Oh, really?
And they're doing something with them.
Yeah.
Now, what that might be, who knows?
I don't know.
It's more terrifying to not know anything. There's just a bunch of Richards in a bunker under a mountain in Alaska in waiting.
Not just Alaska, the Alaska Triangle.
All over the whole triangle is just made up of Richards throughout history.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see the first names of all the males that have disappeared in Alaska in the last 20 years. How many are Richards?
The first one you look up is not going to be Richard.
No. Well, yeah, these are puzzling. And it's kind of funny. It's a lot of, like this case didn't get any attention probably because sadly this happens a little more frequently in Alaska. So I don't know.
And I don't think there was like a big search effort to report on. It was been a year already. Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, so I don't know. This one's puzzling. Like I said, I think Griffiths succumbed to the elements, and because no one really knew where he traveled, the chances of probably his remains being found are slim to none, sadly. And then the other gentleman who, again, sadly, I think my theory on him was suicide based on kind of the evidence you listed out. So
him giving all the stuff away.
Yeah.
That is classic, like, for someone who's actually going to do it.
But at least one of the families, eventually got closure. So Rick Hills. So at least one of the three know what happened.
Yeah.
So, well, I've got no more theories. I think we've covered all of them.
All right. Well, thanks again for tuning into our show. We appreciate all of you for listening and sharing Locations Unknown with your friends and family. Be sure to like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, where you can watch the videos of each episode. Also, if you'd like to support the show monetarily, you can visit our website or Facebook store to buy some sweet, sweet swag. You can also subscribe to Patreon and on YouTube or Apple, where you'll have access to special events, additional shows for paid customers only. And lastly, when enjoying the beauty of nature, whether backpacking, camping, or simply taking a walk, always remember to leave no trace. Thanks, and we will see you all next time.